Hi, my name is Jonah Park. I have just recently released a song called Wildest Dreams of Heaven, and I wanted to kind of open up the project files and show you guys kind of how this song got made. I hardly ever get to do this, but it's like one of my favorite things to do is to go in depth on how did I make the song and how did I write it and what does it mean and all of these different things. I love explaining this and I love seeing different artists get to do this as well. So to be able to do this myself, I love it, and I want to bring you guys through the process. It's so easy for me even to forget how the song came to be. So originally, this song the song journey started back in 2019 with this song. And obviously you can kind of tell it's like, okay, there's a lot more upbeat, but you'll start to hear a lot of the same elements. And it just kind of keeps going. But you'll see here, this is where there's a dramatic shift from what you hear, the final result, to where we started. So it's just this really goofy beat. And keep in mind, 2019, beginning of my whole music making process, right? So we're out of beginnings here. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing. There's a lot going on. Let's kind of break this one down a little bit. So obviously we've got the drum beat going on. Just kind of cool. It's a little simple, but it's nice. But then we also got, and I actually really loved this. It's this vocal bass section right here. That's just my voice being processed through a bunch of different filters to give it kind of this dark, grungy bass feel. And then we've got this kind of like vocal melody thing, I think, and with a mix of like me whistling as well. Which, hindsight, part of me wishes I probably could have used that element a little bit more in Wildest Dreams. But again, these are very major chords and like major melodies. And a lot of Wildest Dreams of Heaven is very minor key stuff. But the one thing that I love, I wish is I'm beatboxing over the drums to give an extra layer of dimension. So we've got this kind of goofy beat, and it feels very hopeful. Funny thing, I called this song Fresh Starts and High Hopes. And why I had called it that was because I wrote it in 2019, and we were just about to enter into 2020. And I was like, man, this next year is just going to be crazy. It's going to be full of such hope and just awesome stuff. And I had no idea. I had no idea the storm that was coming down the road. So I made this goofy beat. I actually had posted it up on my Instagram, accompanying a music video that or not a music video. That's to be very gracious, but a kind of a compilation of clips of me and my sister and my aunt going to this King's Kaleidoscope concert, and it was a super fun time. It just felt it felt fine to me because it was like, okay, well, I'm just making music, still trying to discover who I am and what I'm doing here. And it it was whatever, but I felt after time had passed, I'm like, okay, this is goofy. This is weird. So it started out here, and you're looking at this and you're like, okay, how in the world did we get from here to there? Well, let me show you. We've got here we go. So basically, what we have here is the actual project file for Wildest Dreams. I really love this kind of effect of your kind of radio, starting out on one radio channel and you're kind of tuning it and it's kind of all fuzzy, and then it just breaks out into what you're actually hearing. So this kind of SOS. And then what you're hearing here, this whole thing, you see. Yeah. Love this. This is that same arpeggio melody that you were hearing in the original, but it's being processed through a bunch of reverb and then reversed. So it's like it's just a weird wave effect, but it's also being put on a bit crusher filter, so it's giving it kind of this like this weird grainy texture to it, and it's so weird. What's really I love this so much. So this is super cool. But you hear this right here. So that sounds like it's violins kind of staccato, like building, and then pulling it back. But really all it is it's the beginning section to this whole grainy texture stuff. Because it's reverb, right? But then it's being pulled through the reverse. So this is just the reversed reverb that's building into this whole section. So it sounds like violins, it sounds like it's orchestral, but it's literally just that arpeggiator melody with a ton of reverb and then flip it. And it sounds like, oh, I love that. I love stuff like that so much. And then we get to the whole actual arpeggiator melody. Now, it's the same thing. I didn't change it. I didn't modify it at all in terms of like playing different chords. It's the same chord progression. It's the same thing. I'm just detuning it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was by, let me see, pitch shift 3. No, it's 2 here. And then let's see, vocal transformer. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so it's detuned down, I guess, a whole step, two pitches down, right? And then the vocal transformer is just taking that and putting it 2 octaves down. So it's the same, again, it's the same thing. It's just brought down 2 pitches and then also brought down 2 whole octaves as well. So it's just, and then it gives it this really cool, like thumpy bass that's kind of laying in the rhythm of where the rest of the song is going to go. Keep in mind, the rest of what you're going to hear is not mixed or mastered. All of that was done by Ethan Key, fantastic, amazing engineer who knows what he's doing. He made the song what it is. So you're going to hear this kind of unfiltered version. Don't judge it too harshly. But basically, I love this. It's the same arpeggio, but it's now a thumpy kind of kick rhythm leading into what it's going to lead to. And then we go into the whole first verse, which is you're weaving mystery into the family tapestry, singing "Come and find me, come and find me." Originally, I wrote this song. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna show you this song now. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up. I wrote this line in here. This song, completely separate song. It just sounded too much like something else, so I was like, I'm gonna shelf this. I'm not gonna touch it. I don't like it very much. There's some cool elements to it, and I'm picking those out and putting those in other songs that you haven't heard yet. Essentially, though, that the idea is it's called Chase That Wonder. It's this idea of like there's this childlike exploration factor to your relationship with Christ. And that's awesome. Like that's Christ imbued, and he's putting that into the story. But there's this line that I wrote that I fell in love with of like tales told through a tapestry, woven with mystery. I hear you whispering, come and find me. And it's this idea. I picture this that in Brave, you know how like the mom is weaving this whole like tapestry of her family, but it's also telling of their story as a family. And that's kind of what I'm picturing is like there's this beautiful story that's being told through Christ and God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. They're weaving this story, but they're also weaving these kind of this thread of mystery through it all. And it's like it's for us to take notice and be like, whoa, wait, what's that? And you follow it all the way to come find him again. Like to see, you're like, oh, whoa, this like breathes such a new depth to my relationship with you, and it's so beautiful. And he's calling you to like follow that thread of mystery that he himself is weaving throughout the story. This is where I get this line from, and there's another meaning to it, but I wanna play this little demo for you as well.
be.
So I love this song, and but I was like, I don't, I can't use this. It sounds too much like something else. I don't want to use it. So I got discouraged because I was like, I love the concept of following this thread that God Himself is weaving. How do I incorporate that? And so this was kind of the induction of this song, meaning wise, to Wildest Dreams of Heaven. The first line I came up with was this line, and then I was like, okay, well, how do we still use this concept but do something completely different? So I started scouring through all the old demos, found fresh starts and high hopes, and was like, okay, let's work with this. Let's make it something different, something better. And so kind of messed around with that. And as I was doing that and kind of changing the pitch in certain things, I came up with the line, "You're better than my wildest dreams of heaven." And it's just this idea that the chorus being like, we keep thinking that paradise is going to be the best thing. Like, I think so many of us are obsessed with this idea of heaven, and that's not a bad thing, but it's realizing like if we think paradise itself is going to be fantastic and like the best, how much more is the person who made paradise? Like, I don't know. It's just like you're better than any. I get caught thinking about like, what's heaven gonna look like? Am I gonna be able to fly? Like, am I gonna be able to talk with all these historical figures and heroes of the faith that I've been like obsessing over and just been like, can I talk to them? Am I gonna recognize the people that I loved so much and like never got to meet? Like, am I gonna get to meet family members that I never got to meet and just have conversation with them? I personally love this idea of like going on a universal road trip with Jesus throughout creation, and like him explaining every minute detail of creation to me, and then for us to go back into heaven and like just to be able to like commune with the people that I love, but then Jesus be in the center of that and God be in the center of that. It's like all these like crazy, super fun conversations that you and your friends have, and you're like, bro, what's heaven gonna be like? But it's like that's great, but how much more better and how much more insane in a good way is God than my wildest dreams of heaven? I could dream the furthest depths of what heaven is, but it's nowhere close to what like who God is and what he's done and what he's doing. So it but there's this idea of like you're weaving mystery into the family tapestry. And so that whole explanation of that line was where I was coming at it from. But then I'm thinking about it in terms of, okay, how is this going to tie in with the project itself? Because this next project is having to deal with kind of identity and also the concept of family. And like, how do we fit into, do we belong in God's family? And the obvious answer is yes, right? But I was talking with Kenzie about this, and she had her interpretation of that line when I first showed her this song was that it was talking about like how for the longest time the Jewish people were so heavily God's people. And for a majority of the Old Testament, and when Jesus like finally sets the stage and takes place, he's like, yes, the Jewish people are my people, but I haven't just come for them. Like, I've come for everybody. And so this idea of you're weaving mystery into the family tapestry is like this concept of God being both for the Jew and the Gentile was so mind-boggling, um for the Jewish people who would study the texts, but to just see Jesus himself like kind of shatter this segregation of who he's actually for and who he loves and who he wants in his family. And so when Kenzie explained how she interpreted that line as this, I was like, okay, I'm wrecked. I'm done. This is wild. Yeah, of course this is gonna be on the record, and such a beautiful like interpretation of that line, which is awesome. You don't really expect that. You don't really you constantly think, you know what? Uh when you write something, you're like, well, I this is just what how I see it, and that's how it is. And it's like, well, actually, sometimes it's better that you allow other people to express their interpretations of it, because then it brings sometimes a lot more of a depth to your art itself. So obviously, we go through this whole thing of "You're Better Than My Wildest Dreams of Heaven." Crazy thing, the guitars in this are the same guitars again that I showed you from Fresh Starts and High Hopes. Again, just pitched down. Also, a funny thing about this is the way I recorded this is I recorded this in the original key, but then I would pitch it down to match. So this is um the main.
You're weaving mystery into the family tapestry.
Which again, it doesn't sound like something that's completely out of my register or unnatural. Obviously, you've got some deep and high vocals here
You're weaving mystery into the family tapestry.
to add some kind of saturation to it. But here's what the vocals actually sound like.
You're weaving mystery into.
Sorry, pitch correction. Bad.
You're weaving mystery into the family tapestry.
That sounds like I'm sucking on helium, but I kid you not, that is my actual vocal there. It sounds so weird because you're so used to it being pitched down, but you're weaving mystery into the family tapestry. That's the original key of Fresh Starts and High Hopes. That's what I'm recording it in. Every vocal you hear is me recording it in that original key and then pitching it down to the actual
Singing, come and find me.
wild. Wild. So we get to the whole chorus. Super cool. What I really love too is there's this saxophone, and I really hope people pick up on it. Love that. Love it so much. That I was very highly tempted to put that as kind of the main instrument in that dark, grungy breakdown that I would consider a bridge. But it ultimately didn't work. It felt too it felt too weird. I didn't know how to feel about it, so I was like, I'll just keep it as this ambient kind of cool thing. This next verse.
Even Eden could not capture all your majesty. You're not hiding, you're not hiding.
So even Eden could not capture all your majesty. I love the word majesty, and I love how it's used to describe God. I feel like it's not a word that describes God um enough. Like I feel like maybe in the 90s you had a lot of songs that were talking about majesty and this, so it just it brings such a new depth in my eyes to the beauty of who Jesus is. Um but even Eden could not capture all your majesty. Now I'm bringing it back to this whole idea of paradise. Like Eden and heaven are like the two paradises in the Christian faith that are like idolized. And again, it's a natural thing, but it's this thing of like we think Eden was God's original design for us. And even Eden could not fully capture your majesty, your wonder, your beauty, our infatuation for you. I'm talking about God and our awe of you. It even Eden, what the original perfect intent for us, our existence as humans, could not even compare to you yourself. It's like, I don't know. I really wanted to drive home this fact of like, we think that all these things are beautiful and perfect, and that's what we're striving for. Like, we as a Christian society are striving for Eden or striving to get back to God's original intent. Bravo, we should be, and that's amazing. But even when we get there, it's never going to compare to who God is and how much he's deserving of praise. It's it's wild. It's wild. Anyways, um you're not hiding. I feel like when I wrote that, it felt a little bit like it was kind of contradicting itself from uh come and find me to now you're not hiding. But I think it does fit. I don't feel like it's a dichotomy. I feel like I always imagine like when God is hiding, for lack of a better term, I imagine like the typical like dad hiding from the child in a movie where he's obviously very obviously behind the curtains and you can see his shoes at the base of where the curtains are, and you're like, okay, obviously he's not putting his all into hiding, but he is like he's making it easy for his children to find him, but he's also like wanting this to be kind of a fun experience and a fun moment between him and his child. And I feel like that's what God is. Like God is hiding in the everyday because he's wanting us to explore and go on this adventure with him. And so um while Eden is remaining hidden because of the fall and everything that happened there, God is not. Like God is so much better than Eden because he's even better than Eden in every single way. And in on top of the fact that there's no separation between us and him, like there is between us and Eden. And so it's just like it's to pull that dichotomy even further between God and Eden, perfection, paradise, and yet still God's better than that. It's I don't know. So but yeah, like I feel like come and find me is this call to adventure, but it's not like God's putting his all in so that he can hide from you so that you can't find him. No, no, no. He's making it very easy for you to find him, but he wants you to go on a journey to find him and to be with him in all of it. So it's I don't know, I just love this adventure and this childlike seeking after the Father, and just to know that he's better than anything we could possibly imagine. Then obviously we have this really, really, I love this. It's the reverse scream into the, which obviously Ethan Key completely took this idea. He knew exactly what I was looking for and just amplified it to a billion. Like when you hear it in the finalized recording, this whole thing, it doesn't even compare to what he's doing. It's wild.
You're better than my wildest dreams of heaven. You're better than.
Very bland here. I didn't even realize my production was so bland until he kind of elevated it. He added a kick and some kind of cool drum. It's wild. So good.
Why did you wonder?
What I'm saying there is widen your wonder. Um, Again, another line that I come up with in the car. I come up with a lot of lyrics in the car driving to places, but this idea of like your imagination isn't big enough. Like keep widen it. Like keep going. You're not you we keep thinking God's like, "Oh, God's kind of cool. You know, he loves me, whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, no. Take that. Keep going. Like keep you're like don't stay limited to thinking this is who God is. Like, oh, God loves me. Oh, you know, he died for my sins. It's like, yes, core. That's the core of it. But you're thinking God's this when he's like, I can't even it just keep going, keep dreaming bigger of who he is. Obviously, we have this whole breakdown. I love it, just kind of feels like this Latin, like da 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 da. Ah, and I love the like ah, love that. And then we got some like heavy, just drivey bass right here. just this kind of like, oh, like just like let's add some funk to it. Come on, this is so cool. And then we've got this cool kind of tremolo synth lead line stuff that we got going on here. It's very subtle. You probably didn't even hear it. It's just kind of mirroring those chords from the guitar, but kind of adding a little bit more layers to it. And then obviously we've got the but then we've also got a second layer that's adding another level of filtration to it. Just a little bit of like a echoey kind of atmospheric kind of deal to kind of give it, again, it's just more layers to it. Those drums are really taking over the mix. That's why I send it to get mixed and mastered, because I want to hear all this stuff. And you can in the final recording. This version, it's kind of so basically what's happening here is I've got obviously the volume, but we've also got the tremolo rate, which is it's starting out in quarter notes, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, but then I'm slowly like kind of, and it's kind of you can hear it. You can hear it if I solo it out instead of just having you kind of try and find it. But if you notice, I'm speeding up the rate at which it's going back and forth. So it's kind of building up this anxiety. Obviously, the volume's increasing too, and it's to go along with that echoey, why didn't you wonder? And it kind of feedbacks and kind of brings this like huge, like, oh my gosh, where it's building, where is it going? And then it just all cuts out.
Who would suffer through this?
Then we've got this next line. Crazy thing about this, the piano in this, let me see. Piano in this, where'd it go? There we go. This piano is sampling, Kenzie has a actual standing grand piano. I sampled middle C and then put it through a synthesizer simulator or sampler. And so it's literally taking that middle C and it will make any note that you want, as long as you start with middle C. So it's just this, and I'm putting it, I'm not doing any sort of, like kind of how I did with the vocals, tuning it down. I'm not doing that here. What I'm doing here is just going further on down the keyboard, if that makes sense. So it's not like taking it and pitching it down. No. It's just going further down to lower regiments of the keyboard. Sounds actually pretty real, I would say. But a little bit of that fakeness to it, which sometimes I honestly really, really, really love. It's kind of got some real elements to it, but you're also like, oh, this is kind of like choppy and not clean. And I love that stuff. And this final line, who would suffer through the sacrifice of Calvary just to find me? I hope you guys picked up on the line, just to justify me, not just to find me, as I'm like stuttering through it, kind of like come in, find me. No. This time it's just to justify me. Um, and I love this line. Like, who would do this? Who would go through what you went through for me? Like, nobody. And it's further proving that like God and Christ and the Holy Spirit is like so much better than anything we can imagine. And it's putting you in this perspective of like, what do you think, what are you striving for? That's paradise. You're striving for something that you think is going to satisfy or fulfill you or be your Eden or your heaven. And why though? Like, this is so much better than any of your preconceived notions of what you're striving for. So why strive for it at this point? Like, I'm trying to put God before you as this beautiful, perfect image and put him in a place that deserves the highest praise and reverence through the course of this song, and just kind of like bringing you through who he is And in turn, like when we know who he is, we in turn know who we are because we knew who made us, you know? So it's like it's this idea of like who would suffer through the sacrifice of Calvary just to find me, just to justify me. And it's cool because it's mirroring the come and find me of him calling us to come find him, but he comes and finds us. Like he found us first, and now we get to go on this fun journey. It's not like he's hiding as a way of like, oh, you're in trouble? Well, come and find me. No, 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 no. Like he's here with us. He found us first. But now we get to go on the fun aspect of this journey and this life with him as we go and find him in new ways and new areas of life too. So yeah, that's kind of it. And we just kind of go through the rest of that song. So um yeah, I'm very grateful that I get to share with you this song. I love this song a lot. It means a lot to me. Um it's not so much of a thing that you can bump at like it's not a funk record that you can bump on any playlist, but it's something that I hope people enjoy, and I hope people see the layers of depth that um I wanted to put and worked really hard to put into this song. Um, but yeah, I love this. If you guys want me to do more videos of me going through even songs off Covenant and kind of explaining where these different ideas came from and what happened and all of that, I'd love to do that. But I love getting to do this too. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this road of explanation and going through that. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments or just talk to me about it. So I love you guys. Thank you so much. And this has been Wildest Dreams of Heaven. You can stream it on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or wherever. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey.